Hello everyone and welcome back to the 31 Days of THORGIWEEN, and this is Viewer Request Week, where all week long I'm reviewing the movies that you guys wanted me to talk about, and we got so many requests for Event Horizon. It might actually have been our most requested movie, this one here in particular coming from Murder Queen Delilah on Twitter. Now, I'm actually really excited to go back and review this film because I watched it when I was a kid and I loved it back then. I thought it was one of the most creative horror films that I had ever seen. It blew my mind. However, as I have gotten older, I have come to learn that critics kinda hated this film. In fact, most audience members didn't really even enjoy it. So I'm really intrigued to see how I'll feel about it now that I go back and look at it again. Will there have been something in that film that I saw when I was younger that will still hold up and will still hold meaning to me? Or is there something in there that now that I'm older and more critical, I'll notice that I didn't see the first time and oh god damn it! Okay. So this film was directed by Paul W.S. Anderson. The same guy who wrecked the Resident Evil films repeatedly and somehow kept getting money to continue doing it over and over again. Well, at least now I know why critics hated it and I loved it when I was 12. So let's see if it still holds up. This movie is about a crew full of astronauts who are sent on a rescue mission, only to find out halfway there that they hadn't been fully briefed on the situation. Turns out the ship that they're going to rescue is the Event Horizon, a ship that was believed to have been destroyed, but the truth is the ship was actually supposed to test out a warp drive that would allow them to travel anywhere in the universe instantly. However, the ship disappeared and was never heard from again. Until now. However, when they arrive on the ship, they find that everyone on board is dead, and the ship now has a mind of its own. The crew begins to have visions of their past, of those close to them, and of their horrible demise. And the head scientist Weir, who designed the Event Horizon, actually starts to become corrupted by this ship. The ship is trying to keep this new crew here, and Weir has become a servant to it. It is then revealed that the dimension the Event Horizon traveled through is hell, a world of pain and evil, and Weir wants to return the ship and this new crew to that dark dimension. Now, one of the reasons I always love this film is because I just love space horror. It's a rare niche genre in the horror community, but there was always something effective about it. There's just something creepy to me about the idea of being stranded in a giant empty ship with something hunting you down, and even if you survive it, you're still stranded millions of miles from anyone that can help you. And also just that thought that space is unknown, and it's infinite. That feeling that anything could exist out there. So you want to tell me that your ship traveled through hell? Hey man, that's exactly the kind of stuff that I love. However, as I watched this for a second time, I began to realize that concept alone is pretty much what made me love this film. Looking at it now as an adult with a more objective eye, I see that for every good thing in this film, there's also a problem. Good thing number one, Lawrence Fishburne as Captain Miller. Lawrence Fishburne specializes in playing stern badasses, and here he's totally going all in. He's got that perfect no-nonsense tone, but you also get the sense that he really cares about this crew. Also, when everything is going to crap, he's the guy who stands up and decides to take care of business because enough is enough.
My ship, you can't just leave her?
I have no intention of leaving her, Doctor. I will take the Lewis and Clark to a safe distance, and then I will launch attack missiles at the Event Horizon until I'm satisfied she's vaporized. F this ship.
Really gotta admire a guy who's willing to tell a sentient demon ship to go f itself. In fact, I'll go ahead and say that I think that most of the crew in here is pretty decent. I mean, they're not that deep, you really only get a bit of their personality, but they're each very different and very unique, which is important for a crew where you're supposed to be able to identify everyone and care about them. However, it didn't work for everyone, as that brings me to problem number one.
The funky spaceman over here is Mr. Cooper. What exactly is it you do on board this ship, Coop?
Listen up, Doc. I'm your best friend, okay? I'm the lifesaver and the heartbreaker.
Rescue Technician Cooper. Oh my god, what movie is this guy even from? No, seriously, this is a horror movie about a spaceship traveling through hell. Why does all of this guy's dialogue sound like it came from a Fast and the Furious movie?
Come on, yes! 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 Here I come, mother...
I get that he's supposed to be the comedic relief, but his comedy feels so out of place, it's like a record scratch every single time things are starting to get tense. He fits into this film so poorly, it's like he was a character from a completely different script that the writers liked, so they decided to pick him up and put him into this film, but then they didn't change any of his dialogue.
What makes you think I'll miss? That's right, I'm back! Can't stop! Hey!
And speaking of the dialogue, that's problem number 2. Sure, there are some moments where Fishburne is able to take something that should be stupid and make it sound great, but he's pretty much the only one able to overcome this clunky dialogue. Everyone else in here is struggling to deliver these lines.
It shows you things. Horrible things.
What does?
The dark inside me.
However, when everyone can shut the fudge up long enough to actually show off these sets, that leads me into good thing number 2. This movie is supposed to make you feel uneasy. It's supposed to feel out of this world and sinister. And the actual design of the ship nails that. I mean, to get to the engine room, you basically have to walk through a wall of chainsaws. Why does it look that way? Who cares? It's future tech. It probably makes sense to them. The giant spinning gravity drive feels like it's alive. It feels like an eye staring at you. Sure, I don't understand why they had to surround it with spikes, but it works. And there's one scene where Weir has to walk into a giant computer, and for me, that scene totally captured that uneasy, not of this earth feeling that this whole film is supposed to have. And when this movie focuses on the scenery, when it just lets you soak it all in, it really does raise the tension, which leads me into good thing number 3. When this movie wants to just wait and let that stress rise, it can do that very effectively. When it wants to do that, which leads me into bad thing number 3. All the crappy jump scares. Listen, I cut jump scares a lot of slack. I think they actually can be used well, but wow are they not used well here. And it's not just the jump scares that wrecks the tension, it's also the just awful action. Bad thing number 4. Every time there's an action sequence, it looks laughably stupid. In fact, in the last 20 minutes of this movie, it just drops the horror vibe and goes full-blown action movie, and by that I mean it goes full-blown stupid. Gee, who would have thought that the director of the Resident Evil films would wreck a horror film by inserting really stupid action scenes into it? Don't believe me? In this movie about a haunted spaceship, this is the climax. To assure everyone, I am not adding those sound effects in there for humor. Those are the actual sound effects in this movie, which leads me into bad thing number 5. Dear God, the sound editing is horrible in this film. And yes, I am aware that is the most film snobbish thing I've ever said, but holy cow, is it true. The sound effects don't sound like they were made for a thriller or a horror film. It sounds like they were made for a cartoon. But I could overlook problems like that if the story was good. And I said the premise is great. The premise is what I'm looking for in a horror film. But the premise ain't the story. The movie moves through its story so fast, you can't get any real attachment to anyone, and things jump wildly from one thing to another. And I honestly just thought that's how they wrote it. Until I found out that they cut 40 minutes out of this movie from the original version. Over a fourth of this film was edited out. How do you even do that? I'm sure if I could actually watch the original cut of this movie, it would probably fit together way better and be a lot smoother with much richer characters. But I didn't watch the original version. I watched the edited version, and the edited version is a wreck. So okay, we've got 3 positives and 6 negatives, so as much as I hate saying it, yeah, I can now understand why critics don't like this movie. Because in the end, the only things about this film that I really liked were the scenery, the atmosphere, and the premise. However, a really good atmosphere and a really good premise can make you overlook a lot of stupid stuff. And this film, while it might not have had a good execution, I still think it's got a darn good setup, and it's a setup that really speaks to what I want to see in horror films. So even though I now can see all the problems in this film, I'm still going to give this film a 6.8. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and if you like this video, then make sure that you hit that subscribe button and follow us on Twitter and Tumblr at Professor Thorgy. Also, you can support this channel by checking out our THORGIWEEN merch over at tpublic.com/user/Professor Thorgy. Thanks again for tuning in, everyone, and happy Halloween.